The president thinks that there is an extremist threat to our democracy. The president has been clear as he can be on that particular piece when we talk about a democracy, when we talk about our freedoms. The way that he sees is the MAGA Republicans are the most energized part of the Republican Party. This is an extreme threat to our democracy, to our freedom, to our rights.
Good morning from Athens, Greece. I am coming to you from Aristotle's school. This is the Lyceum, the Lyceum, where Aristotle used to walk and teach his students. And this is where I guess you would say the whole modern education system kind of started in areas like this. And Aristotle would walk around and he would teach his students philosophy and math and science and all of those things right here at this spot, which was excavated, I believe, in 1996, 97 is this spot was excavated. And this is kind of what you see here. We'll walk around here and we'll talk about the news. So the opening video was of the White House spokesperson kind of telling the American people that MAGA, the enemy within, that is the Biden White House's target, the enemy within strategy. So it's September 1st, summer is over, and as we head towards the midterms, the 2 to 3 months towards the midterms, the strategy has been laid out. We're going after the America First MAGA people. You know, I've been saying it for a while now that the EU, the Biden White House, you can't fault them for not telegraphing what they want to do or what they're going to do. You know, the EU for the past 2 weeks has been telling us, you know, you're going to get poorer, you're going to suffer, you have to suffer, things are going to get bad because Ukraine. That's why, because Putin. We have to take on Putin, so everyone in the EU is going to suffer. It's going to be terrible. And then they've been telling us this. They haven't given any reasons why this has to be, or they haven't said that they're looking for any solutions to this problem. They haven't really looked for any solutions to this problem, but you know, at least they're telling us where they're taking us, and the Biden White House is doing the same. You know, they're telling all the American people, look, the enemy is within, and we're going to go after this enemy. Plain and simple. It's MAGA, it's Trump supporters, it's America First. That's who the Biden White House sees as the enemy, and they're letting the American people know that that's the target. And the statement from the spokesperson was actually made after Biden was speaking at an event, at a gymnasium, at an event where Biden said that the enemy is MAGA and America First. So you can't say they're not telling us what they're up to and what they want to do. They're telegraphing it. So I thought that was an interesting video. And, you know, talking about the EU and what the EU is telegraphing, the suffering and the fact that, you know, the European elite, they really don't care about their citizens or their people, because right now it's all about Ukraine, and EU citizens are going to have to suffer for Ukraine. Well, take a look at this video from Annalena Baerbock, the foreign minister, the in over her head foreign minister of Germany.
Making clear that we stand with Ukraine as long as they need us. And because we all agree on this, and this is not a sentence to applause for, because this is just a normal thing if you believe in the rule of law and in the freedom in the world, I would maybe give some controversy in the discussion, and I've listened to your speech, which I really valued, but I would disagree on one sentence you said of saying we shouldn't talk about maybe this war should go on for a longer time. Because if I give the promise as a politician, and luckily in democracy, it could be the chance that people disagree with me and they say in 4 years, well, you didn't tell us the truth. But if I give the promise to people in Ukraine, we stand with you as long as you need us, then I want to deliver, no matter what my German voters think, but I want to deliver to the people of Ukraine. And this is why, for me, it's important to be always very frank and clear. And this means every measure I'm taking, I have to be clear that this holds on as long as Ukraine needs me.
The life and philosophy of Aristotle, born in 384 BC. In 343, 342 BC, the king of Macedonia, Philip II, invited him to Pella as tutor to his son Alexander. Aristotle introduced the young royal to the masterpieces of Greek literature, and it is said to have prepared a special manuscript of the Iliad. Yeah, so that was Aristotle, and now let's go back to Annalena Baerbock. Talk about two extremes, two intellectual extremes there. But there it is from Annalena. She says it out loud, and the interesting part about it is that she laughs about it. That's the part that really gets me, is the fact that she's giggly about it. You know, look, German voters, German citizens don't matter. This is all about Ukraine. And then she throws out the line. The funniest part is she says, as a politician, I would feel bad if my promise to the Ukrainian people was not delivered. A politician would feel bad if their promise was not delivered. Okay, gotcha. So yeah, you know, they're telegraphing the situation. They don't tell us solutions. They don't tell us the whys, or how they're going to fix things, or why we got into this mess. We know why. We know it's lockdowns and sanctions and against Russia and money printing, but they'll never say it. They'll never say it out loud. They'll never admit their terrible leadership, and they don't want to provide any solutions because that's not what it's about. This is about the reset and other things, but they're telling us. They're telling us exactly what they're going to do anyway. Let's get to some breaking news. The real breaking news here is the Ukraine amphibious assault on the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. How about that? An amphibious assault took place as the IAEA arrives to the Zaporozhye nuclear plant, and the Ukraine military decided to go after the city Energodar, where the nuclear power plant is, the area in Zaporozhye. And well, the Russians, they're beating them back, from what I understand. But wow, wow, what does that tell you? The fact that that the Ukraine military has decided to actually, let's sit down here for a sec as I read some of the news, that the Ukraine military actually decided to attack the nuclear power plant as the inspectors arrived. A very well protected, very well monitored area, and the Ukraine military decides to launch an amphibious assault on the power plant. From what I gather, the Russians are they're bringing the full force of the Russian military to wipe these Ukrainian forces out. At about 0600 Moscow time, Ukrainian troops landed on the coast of the Kakhovka Reservoir, 3 kilometers northeast of the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, in 2 sabotage groups of up to 60 people on 7 boats and attempted to seize the power plant, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. The provocation of the Kiev regime with the landing is aimed at disrupting the arrival of the IAEA working group at the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, the Defense Ministry said. The department added that 4 Ukrainian shells exploded during the shelling at a distance of 400 meters from the first power unit of the ZNPP. Okay, so, you know, these guys are going to get liquidated. There's no doubt about that. I have no doubt about it. But, my God, what a crazy move from the Elensky regime. And were these the orders that he got from the collective West? I mean, there's no doubt. I think there's no doubt now whatsoever that Elensky and the collective West, they are absolutely terrified of the IAEA being at the Zaporozhye power plant. They don't want the IAEA to come back with a finding that says, look, guys, it was actually Ukraine that was shelling the power plant all along. So obviously, this is an attempt to disrupt that. But did they really believe that that they would be able to mount this type of assault and to sabotage the mission of the IAEA? Did they really believe that? Very, very bold, crazy, reckless move from the Elensky regime. Maybe there's something else at play. Is this a distraction to something else? I mean, all we're hearing about from the collective West and Elensky is that they're just full of distractions, full of feints. But I can't see anything like that in this move. I see the Russians completely liquidating this assault team, these 60 people in 7 boats. I see them being completely liquidated by the Russians, which they're actually doing as I'm making this video. This looks very, very bad for the Elensky regime. I hope that the IAEA doesn't get scared off and actually does go through with their fact-finding mission at the power plant. And I see the collective West, the mainstream media. I see them trying to walk this back. I wonder how they're going to spin this. I bet you they're just going to walk this back and say this was... Maybe they won't report this. Maybe they'll just memory hole this, and they won't report on this and say this is just Russian propaganda. Or I just don't see how they can spin this in a favorable light. The fact that you're attacking the power plant with this type of assault at the very same time that the inspectors are at that power plant or making their way to investigate the power plant. I bet you they're going to walk it back. I bet you the collective West is going to say this was some sort of reckless move from Elensky. They're going to throw him under the bus, even though he may have gotten the orders from the collective West to do this. Who knows? Who knows? I'm doing this video in the morning, so maybe as we head towards the afternoon, we'll get some more insight as to what exactly happened and why Elensky decided to make this move on the power plant. CNN ran an interesting article yesterday. I believe it was yesterday, where they interview various Pentagon officials with regards to the Kherson counteroffensive, the Great Kherson counteroffensive. And this article is interesting because, on the one hand, it makes claims via these Pentagon officials. They make claims that this counteroffensive is very successful. But on the other hand, and that the Russian military is collapsing. But on the other hand, the Pentagon officials also say yeah, Ukraine is doing super well and the Russian military is losing super bad, but this is not really a full counteroffensive, and we're not fully, as the Pentagon, we're not fully on board with everything, and this is going to be a slow grind, and it may not be as impactful as we may have once thought it was going to be. They're kind of like speaking out of both sides of their mouth. And I really thought this was an interesting article. And they make a lot of interesting claims that they then kind of refute paragraphs further down in subsequent paragraphs. Let me just read you some of what this article says, and I'll put a link to this article down below. The title from CNN says, U.S. war gamed with Ukraine ahead of counteroffensive and encouraged more limited mission. It says here that CNN spoke to various Pentagon officials, and they say that the Pentagon had discussions with Kiev. They had wargaming discussions with Kiev. This is according to Pentagon sources. Analytical exercises that were intended to help the Ukrainian forces understand what force levels they would need to muster to be successful in different scenarios. The Ukrainians were initially considering a broader counteroffensive, but narrowed their mission to the south in the Kherson region in recent weeks, U.S. and Ukrainian officials said. So the first admission in the first opening paragraphs of this article, the first admission is that the Pentagon is indeed wargaming with the Kiev regime. Now, wargaming can mean that they're just kind of, sitting around, kind of spitballing ideas, or it could mean that the U.S. is actually coordinating everything and they're running the show. I tend to believe that and everything in between. I tend to believe that the U.S. is indeed running the show. They're commanding Elensky, who is then commanding the military, something along those lines. Where Zaporozhye and the Ukrainian commanders fit in, that's an interesting question. That's a different story. But I think this is kind of an admission from the Pentagon and from CNN that the U.S. is indeed, they are puppeteering Elensky, and they're telling him how to go about this counteroffensive. Don't make it so broad. Just make it Kherson. Do it like this. Just focus on the Kherson region. This is what you're going to need, etc. U.S. and Ukraine sources tell CNN that earlier plans for the Ukrainian operation were initially broader and involved a more ambitious effort to regain other territory lost to the Russian invasion over the last 6 months, including the southeastern city of Zaporozhye. But by Monday, Ukrainian officials appeared laser-focused on retaking the Kherson region. Okay. A broader mission was what they initially were thinking of, the U.S. command, but then they narrowed it down to Kherson. But in their broader mission, they included Zaporozhye. What's happening today? Zaporozhye, this assault on the power plant. Maybe communication got crossed. Maybe something happened there from the U.S. command to Elensky to the military. Maybe Elensky misunderstood and he actually said, let's go after the power plant. Who knows? Maybe something like that happened. Maybe Elensky got an order from Nuland who said, Elensky, just do it. Disrupt the IAEA. We can't have any type of narrative which says that you were the ones that were actually selling the power plant. The planning exercises also helped the United States better grasp what kind of equipment, munitions, or intelligence it could offer that would be most useful to Ukraine over the course of the war. The U.S. has been regularly providing Ukraine with military advice and intelligence, along with billions of dollars in equipment and weaponry. Officials say that Ukraine now appears more evenly matched with Russian forces, not only because of the advanced Western weaponry the Ukraine has been using effectively, but also because the Ukrainians still have the advantage in terms of morale, unit cohesion, tactical acumen, and a superior ability to improvise on the fly. They have another advantage too, two officials said, a population that is largely appalled by the Russian occupation and willing to engage in partisan attacks to expel them, such as assassinations and sabotage efforts behind enemy lines. Okay. A partisan population, which means terrorism. partisan attacks and assassinations and sabotage efforts. Assassinations. Daria Dugina. Now, I'm going to be careful in my words. All of us know that the SBU would not have been able to carry out the assassination of Daria Dugina by themselves. And they must have had help from various more powerful sources. Is this paragraph not an admission of that? Sabotage efforts, the attacks on ammo depots and the Novofedorovskaya Crimea air base and these drones that they used that now we know were supplied by Taiwan. All of this stuff that has been taking place in Crimea. Do we honestly believe that the Elensky regime would have been able to pull all of these things off without the help of the collective West, of the Pentagon? Well, I mean, this is an admission of that. That's how I'm seeing it. And the Daria Dugina assassination, just on a side note, a lot of people are, including myself, a lot of people, say that this was, an assassination at maybe aimed at Alexander Dugin, and this was about the fact that Alexander Dugin and Daria Dugina were supportive of Russia's war efforts in Ukraine. I want to pose just an alternative thought that targeting Alexander Dugin and Daria Dugina was also a way for the collective West to hit out at BRICS and the whole concept of Eurasia and Eurasianism, if that's the word. It's a way of hitting at the heart of the fair world order, of the Eurasian world order. That's also what this could symbolize. Anyway, that's just on a side note. Let's get back to this article, which is stating that the Ukraine military has the advantage on all fronts. They have better trained troops, they have better morale, they have better unit cohesion, they have better tactical acumen, superior ability to improvise. This is saying that the Ukraine army is a better army than the professional army of Russia. That is quite a big claim to make. Still, despite a more bullish assessment of Ukrainian fighting capabilities, U.S. officials aren't placing any bets that Ukraine will successfully retake Kherson yet. Now, this is further down in the article. Here's the walk back, and here are some other interesting things that these Pentagon officials throw in there. But here's kind of the hedge. Here's the hedge. Quote, "I'm not sure this is going to be the big, massive counteroffensive that folks might be waiting on. It might be a smaller number of forces," the U.S. military source cautioned. "Much will depend on how well Russia is able to defend newly claimed territory," the source said, something that it has not yet been called upon to do in the last 6 months. The Ukrainian presidential advisor, who warned that the offensive will be a slow operation to grind the enemy, a Ukraine presidential advisor, warned that this will be a slow operation to grind the enemy. This is Arestovich. I talked about this yesterday in my video. "The process will not be very fast," Arestovich, an advisor to the head of the office of the president of Ukraine, said in a statement posted on his Telegram account late Monday, but will end with the installation of the Ukrainian flag over all the settlements of Ukraine. Now, in this article, the Pentagon officials, they make the claim that the Ukraine military has reached parity with the Russian military. Ukraine has been publicly signaling for months that it intended to launch a major counteroffensive to retake territory lost to Russia in the last 6 months of the war. And even Monday, when Ukrainian forces began increasing their artillery, rocket, and missile fire on the front lines in southern Ukraine, Kiev had been actively disrupting Russian resupply efforts and command and control across the region. For weeks, Ukraine has used a mix of partisan supporters, long-range fire, and special operation forces to launch a series of attacks far behind Russian lines, including the Crimea, and have targeted logistics and command and control hubs in preparation for the southern offensive. I don't think it's possible yet to confirm the extent of Ukrainian advances, but they've certainly impacted Russia's ability to move north and south across the Dnieper River with their attacks on bridges, the senior NATO official said on Wednesday. And in terms of future prospects, I'd note that Ukraine is much closer to parity in troop numbers in Kherson than it has been in recent weeks. In the eastern provinces of the country where fighting has ground on for months. Russia has also been forced to pull resources from the east simply because of reports that Ukrainians might be going more on the offense in the south, John Kirby, the communications coordinator for the National Security Council, said on Monday. And so they've had to deplete certain units in certain areas in the east and the Donbass to respond to what they clearly believe was a looming threat of a counteroffensive, Kirby said. So, you know, the Pentagon officials, Kirby, all these people are saying it's a counteroffensive, yes, but it's going to be a slow grind, and let's not call it a full counteroffensive just yet either. You can see that they're hedging. They're not so certain as to the success of what's taken place in Kherson. So that's why they're throwing in all of these caveats in there. But the fact that they're saying that the Ukraine military has reached parity, to me, this is what the U.S. is saying. This is exactly what they're saying. The Pentagon is saying. We will gladly trade Ukrainian lives for Russian artillery fire, and let's see who wins in the end. That's what they mean by parity. Because we've always known, since the beginning of this conflict, that Russia was fighting this conflict with, say, 150,000 to 200,000 plus or minus troops. And we've known that Ukraine has been fighting with, say, I don't know, 300 to 600,000, give or take, depending on what you believe. Let's just say a 3-to-1 advantage from the troop side of things for Ukraine. We've always known that, but we've also always known that Russia has a huge advantage in artillery and missiles, right, in hardware. And so I see the Pentagon coming out and just basically saying, look, this is how this war is going to go from now on. This is what we're going to give a try. We're going to give this a try. We're going to throw as many Ukrainian bodies at Russia and allow their artillery to grind them down, and let's see if we can break through. You know, the Pentagon may actually believe that Russia is running out of artillery, is running out of ammo, and they're saying, let's just throw all the people we can into the Russian artillery grinder, and when they run out, that's when we're going to win. That's what they mean by parity. We have the manpower, you have the guns. We believe the manpower is going to win because we are fighting this war to the last Ukrainian. That's the admission there. And finally, in this article, you can't have a CNN article citing Pentagon officials without selling those HIMARS. And they do a really good job to sell those HIMARS. How successful Ukraine is likely to be in regaining lost territory remains an open question. Sources familiar with the latest intelligence tell CNN Ukrainian officials have already said this offensive will likely be a slow operation and punishingly cold winter weather is coming, and then an early spring mud, both of which could force pauses in this fighting. Still, there is a distinct feeling amongst Ukraine's U.S. and Western advisors that the Ukrainian military is on much more even footing with Russia than we believed even just a few short months ago, multiple officials told CNN. Russia still maintains superior numbers in overall manpower and massed artillery. When they mean manpower, they mean artillery. Manpower, okay, the Russian professional military, which 90% of it is not, you know, fighting in this war. Yeah, but Russia's fighting this war with 10% of its forces, where Ukraine definitely has the advantage in manpower. Like I said, parity is our manpower the NATO proxy's manpower going up against Russian artillery. But Ukrainian capabilities, bolstered by sophisticated Western arms and training, have closed an important gap, officials say, particularly the high mobility artillery rocket systems, or HIMARS, that Ukraine has been using to launch attacks behind Russian lines in recent months. It shows you what the sustained training and weapons provision can do when the force is highly motivated and capable in its employment, a senior NATO official told CNN. Another U.S. military source put it more bluntly: Ukraine has made up for Russia's advantage in sheer volume of fire with its competence. Okay, they're promoting the HIMARS and they're promoting their training because they have to. They have to. Buy more HIMARS. Poland, buy another 500 HIMARS. Estonia, buy more HIMARS. Lithuania, buy more HIMARS. Greece, buy some HIMARS. Greece. Look at what they've done for the Elensky regime. Look at what they've done. So that's the CNN article. I'll leave it there. I think everyone gets the idea. And I'll do one more story. I hope this video isn't running long. And then I'll do a quick clown world. And in this story, I'll talk about the fact that Boris Johnson did indeed travel to Kiev in April. And he did indeed talk Elensky out of a peace agreement with Russia. This is now all but confirmed. And it was confirmed at first by Ukrainian media. This was when Elensky arrived in Ukraine. Ukrainska Pravda actually said that, well, let me read you what they said. According to Ukrainsky Pravda, sources close to Elensky, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Boris Johnson, who appeared in the capital almost without warning, brought two simple messages. The first is that Putin is a war criminal and he should be pressured, not negotiated with. And second is that even if Ukraine is ready to sign some agreements on the guarantees with Putin, they, the UK and US, are not. Johnson's petition was that the collective West, which back in February had suggested Elensky should surrender and flee, now felt that Putin was not really as powerful as they had previously imagined, and that here was a chance to press him. And so this goes with the ceasefire that was being prepared, and then the negotiations that were going to take place in Turkey, which was basically that Russia would go back to the lines before the war. They would go back to their positions before the war, i.e. Donbass, Crimea, everything that, all their positions before the special military operation. And Elensky would say that he's not going to go into NATO and he would recognize the Minsk agreements. That was the agreement that Boris Johnson ruined when he made his trip to Kiev in April, I believe. Well, now we have confirmation from none other than Fiona Hill. Remember her? Russiagate, Ukrainegate, Fiona Hill? Well, she came out and she said that Boris Johnson did indeed spoil the peace process. Ex-U.S. National Security Council official confirms, citing multiple former senior U.S. officials, that Russia and Ukraine agreed in April on a peace deal framework of Russia withdrawing to pre-war positions and Ukraine promising not to seek NATO membership. Deal was stopped by UK Prime Minister. Former official at the U.S. National Security Council, Fiona Hill, has co-authored a lengthy essay recounting key moments in Russia's war and Western efforts to aid Ukraine thus far. And in this essay, she says that that Boris Johnson did indeed ruin the peace agreement. She said Russia would withdraw to its position on February 23rd when it controlled part of the Donbass region and all of Crimea, and in exchange, Ukraine would promise not to seek NATO membership and instead receive security guarantees from a number of authorities. But as Russian Minister Sergei Lavrov stated in July interview with his country's state media, the compromise was no longer an option. The disclosure and confirmation from the U.S. side that there was a tentative agreement on the table for Russia-Ukraine peace is a huge revelation, again, which likely will go missing from popular mainstream media coverage. And of course, the glaring omission in the Foreign Affairs essay is Boris Johnson's aforementioned direct role in scuttling the potential for peaceful settlement at what looked to be a finish line moment. Whether or not peace would have ultimately held up will never be known. So let me break that down as I walk where Aristotle walked. This is pretty much everything. I mean, pretty much what's left. But Fiona Hill, so she pens this essay, and she says that officials did indeed ruin the chance for peace in April. They ruined disagreement, but she didn't name names. And so if you go by what Ukraine media posted when Boris Johnson made his trip to Kiev in April, and you put those two together, you come to the conclusion that Fiona Hill was indeed talking about Boris Johnson and the fact that he went to Kiev and he ruined the potential for peace back in April. So that is a huge revelation. And Boris Johnson in Kiev for Independence Day just a couple of days ago, and now you have all of this going down in Zaporozhye, in Kherson, at the power plant, the counteroffensive. No coincidence at all. Let's do a clown world. I think this video might be a bit long, but there's no rope here, so I think I can walk up to here. The clown world has to do with Elensky's villa in Italy, which he is now renting to a Russian couple. Yeah. And Italian media ran the story that Elensky has this $1 million villa in Tuscany, of course. And the newspaper Il Tirreno reported on Tuesday that Elensky has rented this villa to a Russian couple with a London address for the price of 50,000 euros for 1 month in August for 50,000 euros. It's located in the seaside town of Fort de Marmi, and it was bought by Elensky for 4 million euros while the Ukrainian leader was still an actor, the report added. Now, various newspapers have followed up, and they've tried to get confirmation, and obviously Elensky and his guys are denying this, I'm sure. I don't know if they said anything, but I'm sure they're going to deny this. But from what I understand, this really did happen. This really did take place. But, I'm not going to be on record 100% and say this is exactly what's going on. But the fact that Elensky is telling Italians to suffer while they suffer for the winter while they send money to Ukraine in order to fight the evil Russians. And while Elensky is sending thousands and thousands of people to the Russian artillery grinder while he's renting out villas for 1 month and pocketing 50,000 euros. Well, I think that says everything, doesn't it? So they're going to do their best to cover up this story. They're going to do their best to refute this story. They'll probably say this is fake news. They'll probably say this Italian publication is a gossip publication as well. People in Italy, let me know. Is this publication a gossip publication? Is this the real deal? Is this story legit? It sure sounds legit. Yeah, Elensky's done well for himself. $4 million villa, multiple homes in the UK. Not bad for being a comedian and the president of one of the most corrupt and poorest nations in Europe. Not bad at all. All right, I'm going to end it there, here at Aristotle's School and the aquatic element. Water, source of life and creation, therapeutic medium, and symbol of rebirth, has guided man's steps since antiquity. The first settlements developed and the first civilizations flourished besides riverbeds and springs Water was linked with hygiene and care of the body, and metaphorically with cleansing of an element of religious rituals. There's a bath installation. And let's do another. If you want to stick with me, stick with me. I'm just going to do another walk around here. All right, everybody. I'm going to sign out. theduran.locals.com. Take care.